Hi everyone, I was asked about a texture paint that I made for a couple of my steampunk things that I've made, like the tag and the canvas rims craft swaps. And I know there's lots out there, including hymns I've done one myself, but I just sent a pot of some to a friend who said that no matter how hard she tries, she can't get it to the same sort of consistency, and what would help her was if I gave her some actual weights or measurements. And I hadn't thought about doing this before or how I was going to do it, but what I've actually done, I've weighed my powder, that's my talc, my glue and my gesso, and then when I've finished and get the texture that I want, I'll reweigh them and I'll know about how much of each thing I've used. So I'm just about to start making it again from scratch. And don't ask me why I always start with the gesso, but I do. And I usually get in a mess with it, but that's fine. I put quite a bit in, but not tons. What I like to do with this is make a great big jar of it up, but like I said, I've just sent mine off to my friend after filling it right up. So I start off with that, and then I get the talc. Once I've undone it, quite careful I suppose, because otherwise it does go everywhere, and I squeeze a good amount of talc in. And I start by mixing that in and getting a rough idea of the texture I want. At the minute all you can really see in there is the talc. If I'm not too careful, that's all anybody will see because it's coming out quite quickly. Here we go. It's starting to mix now. And at the minute I've got quite, although it's a thick paste, it's runny. It's no good for actually producing a texture. But if you keep on with this, you can take all the talcy little tiny lumps out of it and make it quite smooth. A bit more. It doesn't matter if you put too much in, because it's very easy to just add a bit more gesso. It's sort of coming together a bit now and forming quite big blobs. That's going to be much nearer what I want. I'm just using this old paintbrush because it was used in some varnish, but it's great for mixing this. As you can see, you get quite a big blob, and it almost stays where you put it. And to that I add some tacky glue. Just see if I can get what's left in this one out before I go wasting it by opening another one. And there's no real measure into this when I do it normally. I just squirt it in, but like I said, I will measure everything afterwards in weight, and you can see exactly how much of each I've used. And the white stuff all over my hand is actually emulsion, because we've been painting the house. We're nearly finished now. Just got the kitchen to do and the downstairs bathroom, and then we're going to put it on the market. Then when you put your tacky glue, or whichever glue you decide to use, you need to just make sure that is thoroughly mixed in with everything else. And that, to me, that's still too really, it's not going anywhere, but it's not quite dry enough. I'll just put a little bit more in this time. This smells lovely because it's baby powder, but you can use any talc you like, and obviously anything that's scented is going to be at least partially in your project. And that, to me, I think is fine. See, it's got some movement in it, but it's not actually going anywhere, it's just very slowly wrapping itself around, but it's not dripping. So I would leave that at that. The other thing that I do sometimes, it depends on what you're doing. If you're making it just enough for a project and you want that project, eventually you're going to paint it brown, I will add some brown, like burnt umber or whatever I want, into that mixture, and a bit more talc, so that it's already taken on the colour that I want it to be. But then paint it over afterwards. It's much easier than painting on the plain white. So that's how I make my texture paint, or paste, or whatever else you might like to call it. Just make sure it's in the jar and not all over it. That's there. So I'll just tell you what the measurements were. The talc originally I had 100, whoops, I should turn that on. Originally I had a 104 grams of talc including the packet, and I'm down to 65. So I've basically used 41 grams of talcum powder. So if you called that 40. Gesso was 564 and it's now 509, so I've used around about 55 gesso. Actually it's not, it is it's not far, 51 of gesso. And the tacky glue is at 29, and it was at 34, so I've only used 5 grams of tacky glue. So it's 40 grams of talc, 51 of gesso, so we'll call that 50, 40 of talc, 50 of gesso, and 5 grams of tacky glue is what I used to make the texture paste that I've got in here. I'll give you a rough idea of what that comes out to. So that's 230. The empty pot was 134. So I've approximately made 95 grams. And if you add this up, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 95, so it works out spot on. It's got 95 grams of product from that. So that's how I make my tacky glue mess that I call a texture paste. I'll say hundreds. There are lots and lots and lots of ways of doing this, and everybody's is different. This is really for my mate Sandy, Sandra's only just started to do a little bit of crafting and was struggling with a couple of bits, and I've been trying to help her. This is just another one of those little helps, so if it helps anybody else, great. If it doesn't, just ignore it. But thanks ever so much for watching. Bye bye.